of the candidates in the upcoming presidential election to focus on the issue of education reform.
In our country today, the education system is based on convergent thinking, which is pulling information from multiple sources to find one correct answer. This is what standardized testing measures.
Some think that standardization will increase outcome of success in students, while others believe that divergent learning is more beneficial to the individuality of learning in students.
Convergent thinking attends to objective-based learning and is the type of intelligence measured by standardized tests and programs such as the Common Core. When combined with standardization at the national and state level, it often causes teachers to teach to the test in order to meet the benchmarks set in place for them.
Divergent thinking comes from a small stimulus that leads to creative, diverse, and broad solutions. Thinking divergently leads to creativity and open-mindedness that is more realistic in life following formal education. It allows students to have a motivation to learn rather than just focusing on getting a good grade. This kind of thinking is difficult to measure and therefore more expensive for schools to implement into their curriculums. The education standards in the United States are continuing to fall behind other countries in worldwide rankings. For example, Finland's schools are among the top ranking, and they take a completely different approach to education than America. They focus on critical thinking and problem solving, which both lean towards a more divergent approach to learning. Teachers go to school longer and are generally paid more than doctors in the country. Despite all of this, significantly less money is spent on education than in the U.S.
The Common Core educational program was put in place by the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices and the Council of Chief State School Officers as part of Obama's program, Race to the Top. Its goal was to establish better education standards for English, language arts, and mathematics so students will be prepared for success in today's world. The program was administered by creating a series of uniform tests across states to make sure that students and teachers met certain requirements at each grade level.
Katie Pflugrat is an elementary school teacher in the Hancock District of St. Louis, Missouri. After the Missouri public school system implemented Common Core into their curriculum, she now follows the guidelines that Common Core has set for teachers to uphold within the classroom.
I believe that the standards are there to make students in the lower grades and upper grades career readiness, so they're able to do well in college and then in any career that they choose. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and the standards that we are using right now are what used to be first grade standards. So in my classroom, my students are already being able to read small books. I feel as a whole in the school that I'm in that the teachers are able to do well teaching the standards, and they are able to implement other activities.
Mr. Kathreiner formerly taught at an inner-city public high school, but now teaches social studies at a private school. He chooses to give open-ended tests in order to force the students to think less convergently.
Mr. Kathreiner finds it difficult to balance what he believes is beneficial for the students to learn and what they need to know in order to succeed on the AP exam.
If you don't teach to that curriculum, your students will not perform very well on that AP exam.
Many people believe standardized testing is too impersonal and that teachers should have more say in their students' work. In this CSPAN video, Jose Luis Vilson, an education activist and author of This Is Not a Test, spoke on the issue.
Generally, every politician these days has talked about testing, and it's gotten so exorbitant that we kind of fail to recognize that testing isn't going to solve our problems. And if anything, the best way to measure our students is through teachers making tests, teachers creating these tests and getting a sense of how they're doing right at the spot. It isn't about major corporations coming in and trying to tell teachers what they need to be doing.
Hannah Banker was formerly a student at Marquette, a public high school in St. Louis. She transferred in her junior year to a private high school after Common Core was enacted in her school.
Once you're walking into a class and you're strictly getting taught for a test, and then not only do you never remember what you learned, but it's so impersonal and you never get the relationships and stuff you get in the school because it's so busy just getting taught for this standardized test and this standardized test. So all around it stopped feeling like a school and it felt a lot more like a job.
Some people believe that we should have an entirely different approach to education as a whole. One of these people is Mary Daly. Daly is the assistant head for student and family support at New City School. The foundation or standards of New City School are much different than the standards of schools where Common Core has been enacted.
I think one of the biggest ways we are different than a public school is that we are not restricted by generalizations in education, so that one size fits all. I think in private schools, particularly our school, you are able to write your own curriculum, you're able to differentiate for students, you're able to sort of plan for the success of all children in whatever that means, so that we're not all aiming to hit this line. Success for each child is what's defined by them and by their families and by how we educate children.
We believe that the United States education system should move towards more divergent thinking because it more accurately prepares students for the real world and teaches them to think more independently.
Although this would be difficult to implement into schools' curriculums because of large classroom sizes and the budget administered by the federal government, it would benefit the future generations of our country that would need to keep up with the ever-changing technology and ideas.
The presidential candidates for the 2016 election need to bring light to this issue because education is key to thrive in the modern world. And if our future generations are not properly educated, how can they be expected to solve life's ever-growing problems?